Hello and good day. I am teacher 𝐶𝐞𝐭'𝐬 and your host for Let's Talk podcast. Today, we're going to talk about a story on how English changed from Old English to Modern English. If you're ready, just sit back, relax, listen, and learn. The Old English period can be regarded as starting around AD 450 with the arrival of West Germanic settlers, the Angles, the Saxons, and the Jutes in southern Britain. They brought with them dialects closely related to the continental language varieties which would produce modern German, Dutch, and Frisian. Similarly, many Old English pronunciation are preserved in modern spelling. For example, the night in German Nächt, in which K would have been pronounced and GH sounded like CH in Scots locht. During the Middle English times, Norse influence may also have contributed to an important grammatical change, which mainly occurred in English between the 11th and 14th centuries, and which marked the transition to Middle English conventionally dated from 1100s to 1500s. Old English had indicated many grammatical categories and relationships by attaching inflections, or the endings, to word roots in a similar way to Latin or German. In Middle English, changes in the pronunciation of unstressed syllables, mainly occurring at the ends of words, caused most inflections to merge indistinguishably or be dropped altogether. Another important feature of the early Middle English period was the influence of Norman and later Central French, following the Norman conquest of 1066. Fresh dominance and prestige in such contexts as the royal court, law, the church, and education encourage extensive borrowing of vocabulary. French words for farmed animals, pork, beef, and mutton, modern French parc, boeuf, and mouton, were adopted alongside native words swine, cow, and sheep. Furthermore, the borrowed words came to signify only the meat of these animals, mainly eaten by wealthier French speakers, whereas the words inherited from Old English came to refer only to the living animals. Norman scribes also influenced the way English was written, respelling words using conventions from French. However, by the 14th and 15th centuries, French influence in Britain had begun to wane, being replaced for many purposes by English. In the Modern English can be regarded externally as starting with the introduction of printing. Caxton's selection of an East Midlands, London variety of English for the first printed books at the end of the 15th century contributed to the development of a standardized variety of the language with fixed spelling and punctuation conventions and accepted vocabulary and grammatical forms. The perception of this standard variety as correct, good English was also supported by attempts at codification, notably Johnson's dictionary and many prescriptive grammars of the 18th century. The vocabulary of English was consciously elaborated as it came to be used for an increasing variety of purposes, including translations of classical works rediscovered in the Renaissance, a burgeoning creative literature, and the description of new scientific activities. Thousands of words were borrowed from Latin and Greek in this period. An internal feature which characterized the movement towards modern English was the Great Vowel Shift, an important series of linked pronunciation changes which mainly took place between the 15th and 17th centuries. In modern English, the sound system had contained broadly corresponding series of long and short vowels, represented in writing by the same letters. These changes were not reflected in modern English spelling, already largely fixed by standardization, adding to the disparity between pronunciation and writing which differentiates English today from most other European languages. During the present day, English is used in many parts of the world as a first, second, or foreign language, having been carried from its country or origin by former colonial and imperial activity, the slave trade, and recently, economic, cultural, and educational prestige. It continues to change at all linguistic levels, in both standard and non-standard varieties, in response to external influences. For example, the modern communications technologies, contact with other world languages, and pressures internal to the language system. For example, the continuing impulse toward an efficient, symmetrical sound system and the avoidance of grammatical ambiguity. Thank you very much for listening. Again, I am Teacher 𝐶𝐭∗ your host for Let's Talk podcast. I hope you learned something today. Thank you and God bless.